Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, a little badass gift to you. Today's topic is the importance of hiring the right accountant. For real estate investors, hiring the right accountant is crucial to the success and profitability of your investments. A skilled accountant can provide more than just basic tax filing. They offer valuable insights to financial planning, tax strategies, and compliance. Here are 4 reasons why hiring the right accountant is essential. Number 1, tax optimization. Real estate investments come with complex tax implications, including deductions, capital gains, and depreciation. A knowledgeable accountant can help you navigate these complexities and implement strategies to minimize your tax liability, potentially saving you thousands of dollars. Number 2, compliance and risk management. Real estate investors must comply with various tax laws and regulations. A competent accountant ensures you adhere to these requirements, reducing the risk of audits, penalties, or legal issues. They can also keep you informed about changes in tax laws that may affect your investments. Number 3, time and stress savings. Managing finances and taxes can be time-consuming and stressful. By entrusting these tasks to a qualified accountant, you free up your time to focus on other aspects of your real estate business, such as property management, acquisition, and marketing. Number 4, strategic decision-making. A good accountant can serve as a strategic advisor, helping you evaluate potential investments and assess their financial viability. They can provide a clear picture of your financial health, enabling you to make data-driven decisions that align with your investment goals. So, investing in the right accountant is an investment in your real estate business's success. Their expertise can help you maximize profitability, maintain compliance, and achieve your long-term financial objectives. Now, on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us Dave Foster, a degreed accountant and serial real estate investor. Dave is a qualified intermediary and consultant who shares his tax-saving strategies with investors who want to maximize their returns. He recently authored an Amazon bestseller, Lifetime Tax-Free Wealth: The Real Estate Investor's Guide to the 1031 Exchange. I am ready to geek out over some 1031 exchange topics, so let's get this party started. Welcome, Dave Foster.
Why, thank you, Jenna. I'm going to take that as a compliment that we're going to geek out today.
Let's nerd it up. Very
I'm
good.
telling you. Hey, though, let me add something to bestowment.
Yes.
That was awesome. Hiring the best accountant is much like hiring the best attorney.
Yes.
And the best advice I could ever give for that, I saw on a T-shirt in Key West. The front of the shirt says, "A good attorney knows the law." The back of the shirt, "A great attorney knows the judge."
Excellent. I like that a lot. Well, I married an accountant, so I have lucked out on that side of things, which is why I'm excited to have a conversation with you, because he likes to just do things. He's not very great. My husband Vance, he's not great at explaining things, or I'm like, what does this mean? And this, so you may have to dumb things down for me today, but I'm excited to learn about 1031 exchanges. But I want to hear how you got involved with real estate, and something involves a sailboat. So what is that all about?
Yeah, like 30 years ago, a Minneapolis city girl and a Kansas farm boy were living in Denver, Colorado. I see nothing about the ocean in that. And this miraculous thing happened. We had our first child, and life changed. We stopped wanting to work, eat, sleep, do anything except just watch this little bundle of joy.
Aww.
And it was right then that we said, you know what? Time is our greatest commodity. How can we maximize time? And I don't know who it was. Nobody's taking the blame these days. But somebody said, let's just become real estate investors. It'll be easy. So because my other nickname is Ready, Fire, Aim Dave, I said, okay, let's do it. So I went and bought a duplex in Denver, fixed it up, put a renter in it, later sold it, made what I thought was a ton of money. I'm like all fat and sassy. And then my accountant, because the accountant who does his own taxes has a fool for a client. So I don't do my own taxes.
Neither does my husband. That's hilarious that you said that.
Exactly. My accountant said, you got to write a $30,000 check. And I said, no, I don't. Refigure. And he said, no, it's serious. I did not understand that every real estate investor has a silent partner whose name is Uncle Sam.
Yep.
And I did not know about the 1031 exchange at that time because it was just coming out of a major 20-year court case where the IRS lost. So the IRS is mad. They've lost. We get to do this thing now called a 1031 exchange. Nobody knows about it. But as soon as I found that and discovered that, I went, that would have saved me having to write that $30,000 check 30 years ago. Now, what could you do, Jen, if you would be given a gift of $30,000 that you get to invest for 30 years? How much money would you have now?
Plenty.
Right? Well, that's what the 1031 exchange does, is it allows you to sell investment real estate and then go buy more investment real estate. And part of what you're buying, you get to use the tax dollars to buy more. So you're just ramping up your investing. As soon as we figured that out, that's exactly what we started doing. Between the primary residence exemption, taking that money tax-free, the 1031 exemption on investment property, doing it tax deferred, and sometimes combining the two, 10 years later, we were able to buy a sailboat, 53-foot sailboat with tax-free dollars, and move on to it and raise our children for 10 years, making money off of our short-term rental portfolio, bought with tax-deferred dollars.
I love that. Now,
that's my story.
You started short-term rentals when?
Oh, that was wild. We moved into the short-term rental business in 2001.
Really?
We were very early.
Now,
As a matter of fact, this is a great story. So we were transitioning, right? So what do Denver, Minneapolis, and Kansas all have in common? No water. So we wanted to go buy a sailboat. We figured that wasn't the best place. So we moved our portfolio gradually across the country to Stamford, Connecticut on Long Island Sound. We forgot that when we were asking God to let us go to an ocean, we meant to ask him more specifically for a warm ocean where the sun shines. And instead we got Connecticut where the sun doesn't shine and the water's not warm. So we then moved our whole portfolio to Florida. Well, that was really the early days of the short-term rental movement. And we saw the possibilities. And what we started to do was we would buy waterfront properties that all had boat docks in the back so we could double up the rent. We rented the houses weekly and we forced people to rent the boats. And it was a fantastic model. As a matter of fact, during our third year of business, this would be like 2003-ish, we were the front page listing on this tiny little startup company who was starting to advertise short-term rentals. Their name, VRBO.
So VRBO was first in in place of Airbnb? Because I think Airbnb
Oh
is
yeah, Airbnb is a relatively late comer.
okay. Interesting. I had no idea. And it's
VRBO.
Verbo now. They call it Verbo.
I know, that's what they call it. Still VRBO to me. What do I care? But yeah, so we watched that whole industry start to explode. And that was also the time when people started doing the vlogs. Remember that? The video logs, the precursors to the podcasts. So we would do YouTube videos that were part of the package that went to our renters so they could see how to take their boat to go to Cabbage Key. And darn it, the production of all those, we have to take our boat again to go to Cabbage Key. Let's do it. Great things to do in Key West. Oh, darn, we got to go to Key West again. It was really an awesome time. Nowadays, it's much more a business. Back then, it was kind of the Wild West. So we were ignorant, but happy.
So I love all that. Thank you for sharing that. And it amazes me that it went that far back. So I'm a big fan of short-term rentals and definitely a nice moneymaker for us, certain ones. And I don't want to go off topic here because I will geek out over short-term rentals. But you said that you lost $30,000. Is that what you said with that very first property that you sold, and you said your accountant needed $30,000. So what was that all about? Why did you have to pay the 1031 exchange back then?
Well, I didn't do a 1031 exchange.
Oh, okay.
That was the problem.
Gotcha.
Then we learned about it.
And those are capital gains.
Never again.
Those are capital gains taxes. Okay. I just want to make sure we're using the right terminology here. So, okay. So to avoid I'm going to let you say this because I'm going to screw this all up, but to avoid paying capital gains, you have to do a 1031 exchange. Am I correct in saying that?
That is correct.
Okay, because I can get dangerous with this. So how do you transition from one investment property to another without paying a penny in taxes? Talk to me.
Yeah. The process is straight out of the IRS statute, and it's section 1031. For you, the investor, it's so amazing. You really don't do anything different than you normally do. You list a piece of property for sale. You market it the way you do. You get it under contract. You go to closing. Now, at that point, the differences start because the 1031 has to be documented on the closing of that sale. You have to use this entity called a qualified intermediary. That's somebody like us. That's all we do, are 1031 exchanges. And then you're not allowed to touch the money. So the money has to go into a separate account where it's held for you while you do what? Go and shop for your new property. Get your new property under contract. And then at the closing table again, there's documentation of the 1031 exchange. The money is wired in. And what did you actually do? You sold a piece of property, bought a piece of property with a couple little pieces in the middle. And that's what the 1031 exchange does. And it allows you to indefinitely defer paying that tax. As long as you own that property, you'll never pay the tax on it. As long as anytime you sell that property and do another 1031 exchange, you'll never pay the tax, which is why over 10 years, we went from Colorado to Connecticut to Florida, never paying a penny in capital gains tax. It's available to everybody.
This is fantastic. And what the first thought that came to mind is, as an investor looking for people to invest in your flips, etc., they can use that 1031 exchange money, park it in your project. Is that correct?
Well, they have to buy actual replacement real estate.
Okay.
So if you're marketing a fix and flip of your own, certainly anybody can buy that as part of their 1031 exchange. Now, we were kind of starting to hit at this at the beginning of the show in the green room. A fix and flipper cannot do their own 1031 exchanges because a 1031 exchange is only available for property that you own with the intent of holding. A fix and flip property, you're not buying and intending to hold it. Your intent is to sell it.
Right.
So the IRS won't let you do the 1031 exchange. And not only are you going to have to pay the tax, but it's a much higher tax than capital gains.
True. I guess the point of what I was getting to with that is I work with plenty of investors, and if I'm looking for a private money lender, can a 1031 exchange money, can that actual money be used in a private money transaction?
Only if they are actually buying.
If they're on listed on the deed of trust.
Correct.
Okay.
So like you could, let's say a client, one of the other rules is that to do a 1031 exchange, you need to purchase at least as much real estate as you sold.
Right.
Let's say an investor sold a $500,000 property. They need to buy $500,000 in real estate. Let's say Jen's over here on a project that's $1 million. Well, you could sell 50% of that project, of that building, to the client. Did they buy as much as they sold? Yep, they sure did. And now they become a tenant in common with you on that project. So yeah, I mean, there's some things that you can do like that to get people involved. But it really is for the client themselves. They're simply selling real estate and buying real estate.
So what is the rule about owning a property less than a year?
That goes to the intent that I was talking about.
Okay.
So the threshold of a year only sort of officially applies to turning a gain from ordinary income at a higher tax rate to a capital gain at a lower tax rate. The 1031 exchange is designed for property you intend to hold. So normally that would mean over a year.
Okay.
But there's no statutory requirement for that, only that it be your intent. And then it becomes how you demonstrate that intent. For instance, one of my favorite clients of all time came to me, wanted to sell a piece of property that he'd owned for 2 months. I said, come on, Kevin. You know this is a fix and flip. He was actually in the Smokies. I don't know if you're doing anything with short-term rentals up there. So the Smoky Mountains, I said, come on. You just bought this to fix it up. He goes, no, Dave. I actually had to honor the long-term lease for the tenant that was in there at the time. I said, well, okay, that's all fine and good, but you're still selling now, so what's the deal? He said, well, the tenant moved out because of the bear. Really? He said, yeah, I was just going to hold on to it, but this bear moved in and scared the tenant away. And I'm not going to mess with a tenant. And guess what? His accountant had him send the ring photographs from his front door.
Oh, my goodness.
That showed the bear. And they put it in the doomsday file. And if he's ever questioned as to what his intent was, he'll just pull out those pictures. My intent was to hold it. The bear caused me to change it. So we did a 1031 exchange.
Okay. So as a flipper myself, if I have a property, I buy it, renovate it, list it, but it goes 14 months. Am I going to have to pay capital gains on that?
As a matter of fact, you're going to pay capital gains. You're going to pay ordinary income.
Okay. Because
your intent was not to hold it. And there's a very famous court case from the Great Recession, 2008-ish, where a guy bought a huge tract of land, subdivided it to sell lots. But then the crash happened. He didn't sell any of them. 10 years later, 2018-ish, he sells the entire thing, tries to do a 1031 exchange. He's audited, and the IRS said, no, this doesn't qualify. He said, I owned it for 10 years. And they said, yeah, but see this multiple listing agreement? It was for sale the entire time. How you demonstrate your intent is really key. So for my fixer flipper friends, there's some things that I live there too. I'm the adrenaline junkie. I got to have that fix once in a while of creating something or tearing a wall down. If you want to do fix and flips, slow your roll just a little bit. And instead of buying, fixing, and selling, do this. Buy it, fix it, put a renter in it, and immediately refinance it. Now, when you do that refinance money, which is tax-free dollars, can be used to go buy your next flip project, can't it?
Yes.
So you're not slowing yourself down at all. But meanwhile, that other property is seasoning so that you can demonstrate your intent. So when you sell it, do a 1031 exchange. And what are you going to do? Buy a new property, fix it, refinance it, take the money to refinance, buy your next flip project. This is what's called the BRRR.
BRRR strategy.
Method. Yeah.
Yes.
Buy it, rehab it, rent it, refinance it.
Repeat.
If you do it that way, you will have all of the adrenaline and the pace of a flipping strategy with all of the tax deferral available from the 1031 exchange. It's a great model to switch into.
I love that, and I'm a big fan of the BRRRR strategy. So I want to get into something you have listed. I get in the podcasting industry, we share what are called one sheets, and one of yours that is mentioned, a bullet point here, is tax-free savings through your life, the 4 Ds of 1031 investing. So please share. Let's geek out. Let's keep this geek party going. So what are these 4 Ds?
Yeah, and these actually speak to the power of the 1031 exchange. So the first D, and we'll see how well you can do on this, by the way. We'll make this a test. The first D is to defer, because when you do a 1031 exchange, that money that you deferred is now earning money for you. If I wouldn't have had to pay that $30,000, it would have earned money for me. And that's going to compound over time. If you're making 10% interest every 7.2 years, it doubles. Woo. So double $30,000 like 10 times, that just ticks me off, right? And I still lose sleep once in a while. So start deferring, because every day it's deferred, that's money you're making instead of the government, whether it's 2 years or 20 years. It's really that powerful. So the first D is to defer. Now, the second D I'll give you, it's also defer. And this is because the 1031 exchange can be done to accommodate wherever the market is in its cycle. The market doesn't mature and grow and die at a normal rate. And different parts of the market at different locations all mature and grow and die at different rates. So what's a good investment today was a horrible investment 5 years. Right. It'll be a horrible investment in 10 years. It just depends on where it's at. But the 1031 exchange lets you keep that deferral going, because you can 1031 exchange from any type of investment real estate into any other type of investment real estate. You could go from any location in the country to any other location. So the darling for the last 6 or 7 years was multifamily. Everybody started out with single family rentals, but then they wanted to combine them to go buy multifamily rentals. That's perfectly fine. And that also illustrates that you can sell several properties and combine them to buy a bigger property. You can also sell a bigger property and separate to buy several smaller properties. There's a great little add-on to a flipper. In case you're bored, do a 1031 exchange and buy 3 replacements. So you've got 3 projects you're trying to juggle at the same time. It's amazing how many of my clients in the San Francisco Bay Area sold these massively appreciated properties and went and bought dirt cheap little houses in this sleepy little town called Austin, Texas, following Elon. What's happened to those for the last few years?
Skyrocketed.
So wherever you're trying to go, whatever you're trying to invest in, whether it's for cash flow or appreciation, or whether you're trying to move into passive or active, the 1031 exchange accommodates it. Now, the third D, what do you think it is?
Don't tell me it's defer.
Oh my gosh. Yes. You truly are the wizard. Just like the 1031 exchange accommodates wherever the market is, whatever the market is telling you, The 1031 exchange can be used to accommodate wherever you are in your personal life cycle.
Okay.
I'm not the same investor that I was a few years ago.
Right.
I'm not the same investor now that I'll be in a few years. But my needs can always be accommodated by the deferral of the 1031 exchange. Usually we start out our careers with less money and brains, but tons of enthusiasm and energy. So we go buy a property, we go buy a duplex, we go buy a single family rental, and that's how we get our start. And slowly over time, we start to add. And then we start to realize, well, this is taking too much time. I'd rather move into things like multifamily properties where I could get more dollars per door and more doors. Or we may move into, and this will ring true for you as well. We get to that point where we start to say, we've got a family, we're growing our family, we want to start creating memories. So maybe it's time to move into short-term rentals where we can also get some personal use of them and start to build memories that way.
Love it.
And then there comes a time where you start to say, I'm tired. I'm tired of tenants and toilets, trash and all that stuff. So I want to become a passive investor. So I move into triple net commercial properties or larger properties that can be professionally managed. Or I do what's called a conversion, where I 1031 into places where I want to retire. And then when I'm ready to retire, I sell the house where I'm at. And because it was my primary residence, I get, if I'm married, the first $500,000 of profit tax-free.
Wow.
But instead of using some of that money and wasting those tax-free dollars to buy another place to live, I convert one of my investment properties into my next primary residence. And I retire in that. Remember, as long as you never sell, you never pay the tax. But once you get to a point where you have owned that property for 5 years and you've lived in it for at least 2, you can then sell it and you actually get to convert a proration of that tax deferred gain and take it tax free.
Wow.
What a great retirement strategy, right?
Absolutely.
So the best example I give you is one of my clients on St. Pete Beach who bought 3, just darned identical condos on the same floor of a building. When he retired, he converted the first one of those into his investment, into his primary residence. He lived in it for 3 years, and then he sold it. So had he owned it for 5 years? Yes. Had he lived in it for at least 2 of the 5? Yeah, he lived in it for 3. So he, at that sale, he got 60% of the gain tax-free.
Wow.
And he paid a little bit of tax. I said, do you feel okay paying a little bit of tax? He said, Dave, if I was bagging groceries at Publix or delivering pizzas, I'd still be paying tax.
Right.
This way I'm paying tax for the privilege of sipping coffee on my back deck. Now, here's what's cool though, Jen. Where do you think he moved?
Down the hall.
Exactly.
I knew that. That was
that's
awesome.
His retirement plan. He's converting those properties from tax deferred into partially tax free the rest of his life.
Amazing.
So what a great way to accommodate what our needs are. I've used the 1031 exchange myself to 1031 into what we call kiddie condos, which are properties where my children go to school at a college. We buy a property with a 1031 exchange that they rent out to their friends.
Oh, so smart.
It's lovely. And, you also get to learn real quick whether any of your life lessons soaked in. But that's another story. But it can be great. And then, of course, when they graduate, you sell the property, 1031, wherever you want to go, whatever the market or your life cycle is telling you to right then. So defer. What's the last D, Jen? Be careful.
Defer.
You were doing so good.
Dominate.
You were doing so good. Dominate's a good one. I like that. But unfortunately, it's not nearly so sexy. The fourth D is to die. Now, I get it. It's not my favorite option either. But it will very much work to your benefit. Because when you pass away, your heirs get to inherit your real estate as if they paid market value for it on the day you died.
Wow.
In other words, all of that deferred tax over all those years is not paid by you. It's not paid by your estate. It's not paid by your heirs. It actually disappears.
Wow.
So what a lifetime legacy to leave to your kids. I have a client from Greenwich, Connecticut. We are now on their third generation.
Wow.
Of never paid a penny in capital gains tax. Because the grandpa started with us about 25 years ago. And he died shortly thereafter. His properties went to his son. His son got him with no tax due. Now, we didn't hear from the son for a few years till the profit started to stack up. And then the son started to do the 1031 exchange again. And then when he passed away a few years ago, his children got all the properties tax-free, and we're just now starting to see them doing their own 1031 exchanges.
Dave, this is fabulous. I am so grateful for you coming on the show and sharing this information. I want to go back really quick to the third D, which was defer. And you were talking about your life cycles and certain, maybe you go from fix and flips to buy and holds to short-term rentals, etc. Is syndication, like lending money, can you 1031 into a syndication where it's completely passive?
Not quite, but there's a way.
Okay.
There's a way. So the problem with a syndication is that normally when you're buying in a syndication, you're not buying actual real estate. You're buying an interest in the entity that owns the real estate.
Got it.
So that by itself doesn't qualify. But there are a few syndications where you can buy as tenants in common. So that would work. You own part of the property, the syndication owns part of the property. That can do it. But here's a better way that some of our clients have found. Let's combine two of the strategies. One of them is going to be to purchase a short-term rental. So 1031 exchange from whatever you're doing, go buy a short-term rental. Use all of your cash to do that. And then actually, we're going to change this. You're selling your property for $500,000.
Okay.
There is a $200,000 note mortgage that's on it. So you're left with $250,000 in, or $300,000 in cash, right?
Right.
And you need to buy $500,000 in real estate. You'd really like to invest in a syndication, but you can't. So what you're going to do, though, is you're going to buy one property for $250,000 cash.
Okay.
You own it free and clear. You're going to take the other $50,000, go buy a short-term rental where you can start to build family memories. Now, I know the amounts might be skewed, but they work out for this example. So what do you bet? Did you complete a full 1031 exchange? You sure did. No tax due. You got into the next stage of your investing, which is a short-term rental for fun and enjoyment, but you also own a property for cash. Why not then do a cash out refinance and take that money to go invest in a syndication?
So good, Dave. Thank you for this. These are some great nuggets. And I'm sure many of my listeners are chomping at the bit, wanting to know how they can get some Dave Foster in their life. So how do the listeners find you and learn from you and all this fun stuff and become one of your clients?
Yeah, well, they could talk to my kids who would gladly give them all the Dave Foster that they'll take, so they don't have to. But yeah, we created, as you can tell, this thing's got a lot of man, I thought you were slapping me. Sorry.
My camera was getting fuzzy. And I was
Holy cow, I've never been slapped on a podcast in my life. Good heavens. Yeah, we're having way too much fun. So, as you can tell, this thing's got a lot of levels to it, and there's a lot of opportunities that the IRS is never going to tell you about.
Right.
So we created our whole company around education. And if you go to the1031investor.com, put it in the show notes if you would.
Yep.
We've got a YouTube channel full of like 60 different videos
Nice.
on how to do these types of things. We've got calculators to help you figure out your tax exposures. We've got opportunities to talk to myself and our senior consultants. All of these things through the 1031investor.com. And then, of course, that book that you referenced, I actually wrote that starting out thinking that I was writing kind of a how-to manual. But by the end of it, I realized, no, this is just about how to create your own glide path to minimizing taxes through life. So a big chunk of it are case studies with our actual clients who have done all of these same things.
And that book is Lifetime Tax-Free Wealth, The Real Estate Investor's Guide to the 1031 Exchange, and you can buy it on Amazon, correct?
Exactly.
Wonderful. Well, this has been so informative, and I appreciate the way you present it as well, because I was just telling my previous guest that we are in the edutaining business sometimes, where we educate and entertain. So, Dave, you are truly gifted in explaining this process, and I'm sure it will be very beneficial for many listeners to come find you at the1031investor.com. So thank you for that. We're going to move into the second part of the podcast, which is what makes Dave Foster a badass. And I use the acronym BADASS, and the first letter is B for book. What's a book that's made a huge difference in your life?
You know, the book, when I realized young in my life, my parents introduced me to the Bible, and just my life of learning how much my Creator loves me and how much my Creator wants me to love others. That's shaped the whole framework of my life.
I love it. All right. The first A in badass is advice. You've given us amazing advice, but what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
If you have something that's burning in your heart to do it today, not tomorrow. You're never guaranteed tomorrow. And actually, two of my sons just went to Nome, Alaska. They're in Denali right now. He's 18 years old. He goes, Dad, should I really do this? I need to be getting a job. I need to worry about college. And I just said to him these three words: memories over money. Do it now.
So well said. Thank you for that. All right. The D in badass is for drive. What drives Dave to be successful?
The second greatest commandment is this: love others as yourself. And what drives me every day is, yes, there's a motive of how much can I succeed? I mean, come on, life is kind of a competition. Let's get after it. But how much better can I make it for someone else?
Very, very good. All right. The second A in badass is aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what is a goal you are currently working on?
A ranch at 8,000 feet next to National Forest in New Mexico.
Say that one more time. You're buying a ranch? What?
That's my next goal on the market is I want to find a ranch in northern New Mexico that's right up against National Forest. You know, we've had this sailboat. It's time to get back to the mountains.
Wow. Are you going to have animals, and are you hunting?
Besides my kids?
I mean, are you going to raise cattle? I mean, what do you do on a ranch? I have no idea.
Well, I know what I want to do. I want to sit on the front porch and sip coffee while I watch everybody work.
Perfect. I like that. All right. The first S in badass is for systems. What systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
And you know, the first time around when we started this business, my clients, this was before a lot of these today's systems were in place. I mean, the internet was still kind of relatively fresh, but my My colleagues used to say, Dave, we just have this vision of you driving down the road, throwing out brochures from your convertible. And so how do you find all these people? What we have done is using algorithm searching, certainly has helped us a lot, creating the web presence that allows us to maximize the time we spend with clients personally, because we don't have to do all the onboarding. So that's why we've set the website up that way, so that you can self-educate first, then you can create appointments, give us backgrounds so we can refresh ourselves, and then we can reach out to you, and that maximizes the time that we get to spend. So all those kinds of time efficiencies are huge.
Huge. Wow. Very, very good. All right. To wrap this up, the final S in badass is for success. What does success mean to Dave Foster? It's a tough question.
It is a tough question. It really, there's, I'm going to butcher this quote, but there was a guy, actually, you'll have to Google him up, because in honor of the name of your podcast, he created a sailing magazine, and he was a biker, an old biker guy that sailed all over the world. His name was Bob Bitchin. I'm serious. Google him up. But he either created the quote or made it famous, talking about, I don't want to end my life with a whimper. I want to end my life sliding in on two wheels, landing on my feet without a penny to my name, saying, what a ride.
Well,
and I think that would be success for me. Just enjoying everything that I can get out of life and doing it with the people I love.
Well, I have no doubt that you have that final wild ride in you at the end there. So thank you, Dave, so much for being on the show today. This has been very educational, and I appreciate you, the manner in which you describe things. And one more time, what's the best way for the listeners to find you?
The1031investor.com.
Perfect. And check out Lifetime Tax-Free Wealth, the real estate investor's guide to the 1031 exchange. Dave, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Great to be with you.
Absolutely. And that is all. Thank you for listening. And we will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.